Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Summer Brynhild. She's a 4-star Berserker introduced with the Servant Summer Camp event, and she's got a kit that I'd consider pretty impressive if she came out in Summer 1. Oh, Bryn friends, I've got bad news for you. What's she rocking? Swan Dress Summer. 2-hit evade, 3-hit damage reduction. The latter is almost always worse than a proper defense buff, but the skill as a whole will let her survive an enemy NP. Then there's Wisdom of Summer. 20% charge and 10 stars per turn for 3 turns. It's on a 6-turn cooldown, meaning it'll be active half the time, unless you want to run some sort of cooldown reduction like the Vich system. Finally, there's Summertime Lovers, a 3-turn hybrid arts buster buff that also applies the effect to Beloved One allies. Some of you may be more familiar with the term Brynhildr's Beloved. It's a specific subcategory of servants that either take more damage from Lancer Brynhild's NP or receive Berserker's buff. One of those things you just have to know or look up, since it's pretty much just whoever the fuck Bryn thinks is righteous. Like Dr. Jekyll. This lunatic. A horse. Or a lunatic and a horse. Also, before you try any self-cessed memes, Brynhildr herself is not in fact a beloved one, so you can't just run to her. The bigger problem is that, barring the odd support like Wave or Amadeus, you'd have to be running these servants in a double attacker setup with Bryn. And let me tell you, a lot of these attackers would much rather run with double supports instead, or even go it alone like First Asan, Kuwalter, Fairy Knight Gawain, and Ashwataman. Better that than drag Brynhild around. Hey, you think Jason's in the market for another crewmate to kill him? Here's the worst part. I actually kinda like the underlying idea of Berserker. Picture this, a stealthy supporter who generates resources while hiding behind hit-based evades. It'd even be fine if they were a Berserker, as long as they provide value on the field that makes them worth frontlining. Maybe through a buffing noble Phantasm. Well, here's what we got instead. Brynhild Sigurtind. Sounds like a brand of yogurt. It's an AoE buster attack with invuln pierce and a preemptive buster buff tied to overcharge. Those are some useful effects in isolation, but one's very much meant for a primary attacker. Her attack stat is on the high end of 4-star servants, but her kit just doesn't let her excel in this role. No star absorption, no instant charge, no crit buffs, and her one proper buff skill can't carry her to victory. She'd want attack and NP buffs externally, and let's not forget that you'd need to roll multiple copies of this limited 4-star servant to get mileage out of her NP in the first place. As someone who's had a low NP Bryn for a while, I can tell you it's rough going. Bryn's kit has got a little bit of everything, which amounts to not much of significance. And the whole Beloved One lore aspect is actually more of a hindrance to her than anything else. She's just kinda okay, and I would generally avoid going after her specifically. But let's say you get her anyway, either through Fatal Attraction or collateral damage from Kiara. How do you make the most of her? Well, new players generally don't run fast clear teams anyway, so they can try a Beloved One Monster Mash team with any suitable targets they have. You'll have some stars, a party-wide buff, and eventually her NP will be ready. More advanced applications are similarly limited among Beloved One lines. The upside is that, since she's a Zerk, pretty much anyone else can grab the stars she generates, someone like Sigurd for instance. Though frankly he might benefit more from George turning his target into a dragon. I guess there's someone like Emiya or Fairy Knight Lancelot too. Their NPs can change between arts and busters, they can use both halves of Bryn's buff. Of course, they get way more mileage from meta supports, so I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you can't field double supports in the first place. For general usage tips, as with most servants, load magical energy is the append skill of choice. Worst case scenario, it shaves a turn off Bryn's first NP when comboed with Wisdom of Summer. You'd only need to find 20% elsewhere to get an NP off in the first 4 turns. CE-wise, Aerial Drive is my go-to on account of its starting charge NP damage buster combo. An additional 10% from her level 1 append, and Berserker will have her NP up with 2 turns of passive generation. Beyond that, Golden Sumo, or maybe something with NP damage. Bryn's lack of an absorption buff means that personal crit effects are difficult to capitalize on. Even command codes can't fix Berserker's star absorption. Zerkhildr, actually I shouldn't call her that, Brynhild is a thing. Brynzerker is just kinda okay. She's too wishy-washy between what could have been an interesting support kit and a half-decent attacking setup. As it stands, her skill set doesn't synergize into anything particularly interesting or unique. The Beloved One tag is sorta broad, but presumes a 2-attacker setup, which just tend to underperform versus double support arrangements. Her effect magnitudes would need to be significantly higher to overcome that deficiency. I can see them revisiting the concept of a stealth supporter in the future, but Bryn's lore is way too cumbersome. So when the time comes, it'll be with a new face, I reckon. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed me telling you how much your waifu sucks, subscribe for more punishment, and come watch me roll her anyway on stream. Twitch.tv/Finotaisen. I stream every weekend, 3 PM Pacific time, Friday through Sunday. It's always a good time. Even for the plebs, I think. Anyway, see you there.